Today's subject is probably the most important subject we could be talking about at the moment and going forward. Is it about COVID-19? Not quite. It has something to do with it, yes, but not quite. Is it the vaccines? Not quite. It has something to do with the vaccines, yes, but not quite. Although I do have my own personal opinions on COVID-19 and the vaccines, I'm not going to get into that here today. What I want to talk to you about is far more important than that. I would like to discuss the reaction of our government, as well as many other governments all over the world, to the so-called pandemic and where it is leading to. I want to dig deep and see if I can deduct from what is going on right now what we can look forward to in the near future. I'm going to concentrate on South Africa, but this will apply to almost every other country really, since we are all faced with the same problem. I'm talking about the government's reaction to the so-called pandemic and how they are handling the situation. Let us first look at what effect these lockdowns have had on us as individuals. Firstly, the carnage that has taken place as a result of businesses going bankrupt and closing down has and continues to be extremely tragic. As if the unemployment figures weren't bad enough to begin with, we are now adding to these numbers daily. The number of people who I know that have lost their jobs over the last year or so is ridiculous. I know of families that just a year ago were financially maybe not well off, but were doing just fine, living a modest lifestyle. Today they are almost destitute and rely on the generosity of friends and family who have not yet met that same fate. The lack of productivity in industry is only now starting to be felt, with the scarcity of certain products becoming more and more evident every day. However, the most important thing I would like to talk about as far as the effect of these lockdowns have had is the effect it has had on us personally, the way it has affected our emotional and physical states. Although, as you know, I am unemployed for all intents and purposes, so I have not suffered the very same effects as someone who, before the lockdowns, was used to getting up every morning and going to work. But I have witnessed it 100% in the people around me. Firstly, let me talk about the way it has affected me personally. Because my partner is now one of the people who have been relegated to the work from home club, she no longer has to get up at 5:30 in the morning to get ready and then to drive to work. This means that she does not need to get up early any longer. The result is that we now both sleep much later than we used to. She can now literally take her first meeting in bed. There is no need to get up early any longer. Due to the curfew, there is no longer a need to go out, and because I absolutely detest having to wear a mask every time I get out of my car anywhere, I even avoid going to the shop down the road for anything. The end result is that now we spend more time in bed, more time on the couch, more time sitting in a chair behind our computer screens, less time exercising and less time outdoors in the fresh air and sunshine. At the moment, I am the heaviest I have ever been in my life and the most unfit I have ever been. I expect that I am not alone in this. It is just too easy to sit and do nothing. I guess the fact that I can't afford to do much else doesn't help either. The fact is that I and many people I know have become more lazy, more unhealthy, more overweight, and that is not a good thing. Then we have the biggest contributing factor to our own demise: the impending implementation of mandatory vaccines, and specifically the vaccine passport, which, if implemented, will result in anyone not in possession of a vaccine passport being prohibited from accessing public facilities. To me, this poses the biggest risk to our future than the pandemic itself. Let us examine this for a minute or two. Whether you believe the vaccine is effective or not is immaterial here. The forcing of people to take them is both immoral and illegal. It contravenes the Constitution as well as international laws. That aside, I would like to take a look at the far-reaching consequences of enforcing these draconian measures. Enforcing a vaccine passport system in this country would effectively mean that if you have not been vaccinated and do not have the passport, you will be shut out of the economy. You will not be able to enter any shopping centers to buy food. You will not be able to buy fuel for your car. You will not be able to go and have a meal at a restaurant. You will not be able to enter a bank, and so on and so on. I assume the passport system will be extended to healthcare as well. So good luck trying to see a doctor when you are ill. Basically, you will be confined to your house, flat, or apartment. Besides this possibly leading to some people basically left to starve in their own homes or die of sicknesses that would normally be easily treatable by a doctor or a hospital, I would like to delve even deeper than that. The last figures I have on the vaccine rollout was that 12% of the population were vaccinated. These figures are a week or two old now, so let's assume that by now 20% have been vaccinated. This means that at least 80% of the population have said that they do not want the vaccination and are therefore classified as vaccine hesitant. Taking these figures into account, I would like to ask the following questions. How long will the corner cafe down the road from you last if 80% of its clientele was to vanish tomorrow? How long will your favorite restaurant last if 80% of its patrons suddenly stop coming? How long will the Pick n Pay, Checkers, Woolworths, Builders, Macro, etc. last if their customer base was slashed by 80% overnight? The bottom line is that none of these businesses would survive, and that, I think, is the aim. Who or what do you think will become the supplier and therefore the controller of the food supply and other commodities if all these businesses close down within the space of a few months? There can only be one answer, and that has to be either the government or some entity that currently controls the government. The entire nation will be standing in queues for food rations before you know it, and the vaccinated will be given special treatment as an incentive to the rest of us to roll up our sleeves. We will become a communist state overnight, and then it will be too late. There will be very little we can do about it. The other day I saw a meme on Facebook which said the following: even if you're not conspiracy minded, something in your soul has to be telling you that something isn't right with any of this. Isn't it ironic that a nation that after the Second World War adopted the saying, never again, have become one of, if not the most vaccinated nation on earth, and now the most captured nation on earth because of it? Things are not looking too good for the Israelis at the moment if the stats I am seeing are even half true. Isn't it ironic how we have allowed ourselves to once again be put into a position where our very existence is once again threatened after surviving and recovering from 2 wars that left the Boer nation decimated and on its knees? It just shows we do not learn from history, and therefore we are destined to repeat the same mistakes made in the past. Seeing that the vast majority of the population are vaccine hesitant and are refusing to get the jab, how is it even possible that the government could implement a passport system that will negatively affect the vast majority of us? I'll tell you how they can do it. The only way that this can happen is with the cooperation of the majority of the people. In other words, if the majority roll over on their backs and comply. That is the only way the government could do this. There is no other way. So if we want to save ourselves from being led into communism and misery by the minority, the only way to prevent it is for the majority to stand up and oppose what is going on. We need to fight the system with everything we have right now, because if we don't, we will very soon find ourselves in a position where we live in a government-supplied box, receiving a government-supplied grant, eating a government-supplied ration, and as Mr. Klaus Schwab said, we will own nothing and we will be happy. So how do we fight this? I don't know how many of you have been keeping up with what has been happening in Australia lately, but certain provinces controlled by leftist liberals are currently living in a state of oppression that can only be compared to martial law. There are countless videos out there right now showing the police manhandling and assaulting the public. Isn't it ironic that a whole country that was originally started as a prison colony is now being turned into a giant prison once again? Luckily, the people are starting to see what is going on and are starting to stand up to the government, and riots are starting to take place regularly. If the authorities carry on with the implementation of these draconian measures, I can only see the situation deteriorating to a point where the government will be thrown out and blood is going to be spilled. Lots of it. This is the kind of thing we in South Africa need to be doing right now. If 80% of the population do not want what is happening, then we should not have it. That is how democracy works, isn't it? Not that democracy has ever worked in Africa, but they like to call what we have a democracy. If the shoe fits, wear it. If a shopping center is forced to close its doors to the public and only allow people inside who can prove that they are vaccinated, what can they do if 80 out of every 100 people simply force their way in? What if 80% of all businesses refuse to take part in this financial suicide mission? What if those businesses were supported and protected by 80% of the population? The bottom line here, folks, is that the only reason why the government here and everywhere else has got away with what they have is because the majority of the people did nothing about it, and that has to change. Gone are the days when we can claim that that is someone else's job, not mine. If it affects you, it is your job to do something about it. If you don't, you, your children and your grandchildren will be left with a wall too high to climb. Go and do some research into how the people in East Germany lived after the wall was put up. Go and do some research into the standard of living of people in North Korea, or how people lived in the old USSR. This is what is in store for us, our children and our grandchildren, if a stop is not put to what is happening right now. If your car starts to make a strange noise, do you have it checked out before it gets bad, or do you leave it until the engine seizes? Business owners, you need to make a decision. Do you want to survive this, or are you going to comply and go bankrupt? There is no way you will survive what is coming if this vaccine passport system is implemented and enforced. It's mathematically impossible. And with all the evidence being exposed now about the negative effects of the vaccines, etc., I doubt that the vaccinated figures will improve much going forward. People, we need to make a decision on whether we are going to allow this to be done to us. For us to be dragged into poverty and misery, or are we going to support and protect the businesses who are willing to defy this criminal injustice happening right now? In the same breath, are you willing to boycott any and every business you come across who participates in this suicidal mission? If you are, I have our first target. Take a look at the last line in this advertisement for employment opportunities at Pick n Pay. You are only allowed to apply for these positions at Pick n Pay if you are fully vaccinated. Many of you who have been following me for a while will remember when I named a number of large companies who have openly and publicly discriminated against whites. I can remember companies such as Discovery Health and Coca-Cola. To this day, I have not bought a single product with the Coca-Cola name on it, and I certainly will never give a cent to Discovery Health. So I can say I practice what I preach, and I would hope that you do too. Having said that, I would like to call for the wholesale boycotting of all Pick n Pays. I will never set foot in another Pick n Pay again as long as they support the demise of society. Let's support the smaller businesses instead, and defend them if the authorities try to force their compliance. Pick n Pay has overstepped the line, as has Coca-Cola and Discovery. They are compliant in either discriminating against you or trying to drive you into poverty and slavery to a communist system driven by people like Klaus Schwab, amongst others. As such, they do not deserve a cent from the pockets they are discriminating against. It is as simple as that at the end of the day. Either you fight now, or you, your children, their children, and generations to come will suffer for the rest of their lives. The time is now. There is not a minute to waste. There is going to come a day pretty soon where these evil people and their collaborators will be hung in the streets or put in front of firing squads. I hope to see that day. Remember to like and share this on as many social media platforms as possible. It's the only way that my message gets out there. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, I have to ask why not. You have absolutely nothing to lose. If you would like to make a contribution to my channel and my work, in the description field I have made provision for both local as well as international listeners to make a contribution. If you'd like to make a crypto contribution, also in the description field I have provided both a Bitcoin as well as an Ethereum wallet address. If you'd like to contribute any other crypto, simply send me an email to the address in the description field and I will send you the relevant wallet address. I also have a Zapper account, so if you would like to use Zapper, simply pause the video and scan the Zapper code. Any and all contributions will be welcome and very much appreciated. To those amazing people who do contribute to my channel, I say a huge thank you. Until next time, be safe out there.